Before we start, I am an unpublished rando on the internet. This is food for thought, but you have to decide for yourself. Alright guys, today we are talking about immersion. Now, immersion outside of games means being completely surrounded by something. This could be water, this could be, for language learners, they do immersion learning in another country where they have to learn the language because everyone around them speaks it, it's on all the signs. In games, we talk about immersion like being so into the story that you can really see it, that you can really feel the world around you. Now, the reason I bring those other definitions up is because it's going to help us understand something without the helpful context of gaming. When you get unimmersed, it's when you get pulled out of the water. When some little part of you floats to the surface and breaks the water, you are unimmersed. You start to dry out. You can feel that you are no longer completely surrounded. Immersion breaking things in games is not lack of detail. It's not that you weren't told that the door is made of oak or that the dungeon smells of musty ichor. It's that at some point in the flow of your thought, you had to stop and you had to take your mind to somewhere else. And that broke your immersion. The important thing to understand is that your mind will fill in the details that are missing. It cannot ignore when it gets pulled out to another place to think about something else. An example of this filling in the gaps that I found really interesting was Alan Moore does this reading of like the first page of a book that he likes, the first sentence. He goes through one word at a time and thinks about what are you imagining as you're reading the sentence. So he starts with the. The means there is something there, but right now it's a gray blob. Red. So now the gray blob is a red blob. Sun. Now there's light. Now there's landscape. Now there's a world. Is. So the sun is doing something in real time. Something is changing. Low. Okay. Now there's a concept of time. So our picture is being filled out just by this little description of a sun. And then he goes on to say, the blue high. Two suns. Alien world. Got a whole thing imagined now. It retcons everything you thought so far and rebuilds your fiction. This is the way that we actually experience stories, is taking new information and overriding what we had already imagined. So actually, the more detail that you give, the more times I have to rewrite what I was already imagining. When your brain fills in these gaps, that is actually what we want, because you are going to immerse yourself far deeper than my words ever will. I can give you lots of detail that will help you paint a very accurate picture, but your imagination is what makes it vivid. You want to give minimal detail, but strong theming, so that we end up in the same place, but with our gaps filled in automatically. So what does strong theming look like? I'm going to use Wardens of the Wetlands as an example again. So this guy is making a TTRPG based on frogs that find trash and then make items out of them. And already, I believe that you can imagine the world. I think you're imagining something like The Borrowers, but with frogs. And it's awesome. Now, you could be wrong. It could be human-sized frogs. It could be alien frogs. It could be one specific type of frog. But those are the details that he would want to give. So the way that I like to think about it for tabletop role-playing games is that I will give you the important things that we all need to agree on. If the door being oak is important, I will mention it's an oak door. If the floor being granite and making a scraping sound could be relevant, I'll mention that. But I'm not going to sit here and bore you with 10 lines of the smells of the dungeon if they just don't matter. I trust that you will be filling in those details in your own mind, and that's fine. If you get to a point where something might matter and you want to be on the same page, that's when you ask questions like, well, what material is the door made of? And you don't have to come out of your imagination to ask that question. You simply have to have a blank spot and be like, I want to fill in this blank spot. So you ask, I answer, and then you fill it in. It's not a seamless process, but it doesn't bring you out of the activity. It doesn't break down the whole mental model that you have, like it might if we sat there and rolled on a table to figure out what the door is made of. But believe it or not, immersion in story is only part of the point of this video. What we're actually talking about is separating combat and story and why it's actually beneficial rather than something you should fight against, maybe. If your combat is tactical, and there's a lot of exact measurements, a lot of numbers, a lot of rolling of dice, and you must carefully consider your moves, don't pretend that it's narrative. You want to immerse either in the puzzle solving of the tactical situation or the story. You can't immerse in both. And flip-flopping back and forth will pull you out of each, being less satisfying for each activity. This is true for exploration as well. If exploration is about resource management, trying to do that in a narrative way could actively harm the experience that would otherwise be a really interesting puzzle to solve. Let me do the fun puzzle part, and then we'll get back to the roleplay. Trying to intermingle two activities means that I cannot immerse in either one. I've seen this in some games where you play through your backstory to kind of generate your character, and people tend to make the decisions they want to end up with the correct character sheet rather than immersing in the story. And you end up with this really awkward, drawn-out character building exercise that doesn't help anyone. It actually makes both things worse. So yeah, in conclusion, go watch Alan Moore, and he will make you believe that you can be a writer. Segregate your modes of play so that you can immerse in each one completely, and provide strong themes so that people get on the same page automatically, so their brains go to the same place. It's much more about remaining completely surrounded by the activity than getting as detailed and accurate as possible. The moment any part of you breaks out of the activity, the whole thing falls apart. You are no longer immersed. Thanks for watching. Leave your unbridled rage in the comments.